Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. Thank you for plugging in with us today for another episode. On today's episode, we are talking about the enthusiast topic of electrifying everything we possibly can with the help of Jerome from our Out of Spec Renew channel and one of the seasoned leaders in the conversation of conversion system manufacturing and distribution in America, Kirk Miller. All right, y'all, let's dive in. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes. We are joined, like I said, by Jerome, who runs our Out-of-Spec Renew channel that covers everything about the second life of EV batteries, exploring topics and projects across enthusiast builds, restorative models called resto mods, right? And much, much more. So thank you for joining, Jerome.
Hello.
Hello, Jerome. You're so fun. I love the enthusiasm that you bring to your coverage too. So if anyone hasn't checked out the Out-of-Spec Renew channel, check it out. I'm always astounded by the projects that people are undertaking for either DIY projects or big projects for electrifying something that they love very much. There's a lot of passion there, and I love to see it. Also, Kirk, we are lucky to be joined by you, VP of Direct Sales at Hypercraft, which aims to unleash the unlimited performance potential of electrified and hybrid propulsion in every motorized industry vertical, and envisions a future where innovators have greater access to the best EV technology. You are a technical, knowledge-based, pure-blooded vehicle enthusiast who, in recent years, turned the majority of your attention toward the EV motorsport and conversion markets as your VP of Direct Sales at Hypercraft. And it's really interesting what you've been doing and what you have under your belt in terms of experience. You've been working in the automotive industry for a while now. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? Because there's a lot of different ways that you can enjoy vehicles, from everyday driving, passenger vehicles, to the enthusiast recreational part of things. How did you get to this point where you are with Hypercraft?
It's been a very long road, to say the least, but it's been fun and challenging and rewarding, all the same. I think one of the easiest ways to say, like, how did I get here, was just in pursuit of the next really cool thing that revolved around improving performance and making it more accessible. Just me personally, the way I was raised, my grandfathers, my dad were all self-made men, entrepreneurial in spirit. And one of the lessons that they always shared with me is the more people you can make successful, the more successful you'll be. So I've been absolutely blessed to be put in positions that allow me to exercise, that thought or that philosophy. From owning my own business at a very young age, I owned a race and prep shop. I started out in New Jersey. At the age of 22, I started my first company, and then after about 12 years, moved on to a company called Gretty Performance, which is heavy in the tuner market, and was involved with them starting up in the United States in the late 80s, early 90s. Late 90s, I joined a company called AEM, Advanced Engine Management, spent close to 25 years there. And the last 3 years at least with AEM, we introduced the VCU. So our focus was really on the EV segment for several reasons. One, we saw a performance benefit with EV propulsion. Two, the legislative and regulatory pressures that are being applied to the performance aftermarket they're daunting, to say the least. So that having a business that revolved around performance, which means changing the air-fuel ratios of things and turning these, street vehicles into race cars, and then having the EPA begin to crack down and say, you know what, we don't like this, and we don't even care if you're racing. We're going to crack down on it. So it got really my family, meaning the engine builders, the tuners, the race teams, began to feel these pressures as well, where the EPA would show up with a demand letter, and legislative and regulatory the issues are not going to go away. And to me, with AEM and now with Hypercraft, it's really an opportunity for us to create another path or avenue. It's not a you're either an ICE guy or an EV guy, or ICE shop or EV shop or enthusiast, whatever. It could be a combination of both, which we'll get to. So we, Hypercraft are trying to create a set of products that allow builders to continue to express themselves through different ways of increasing the performance of a vehicle, to expanding classes within certain motorsport categories that fit well with the EV profile, and just continue to grow up from there. So I want this, this next stage to be really fun. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be really challenging, and there's some massive barriers in front of us. The cost barrier with an EV conversion is massive compared to the way you're able to take an ICE engine in stages, bring it to a big power package, and you're going to invest probably close to the same figures over the course of time, but making that transition in one step is really challenging. And we have with Hypercraft, we have some ideas to combat that when we start talking about hybrids versus a full BEV conversion. So those are some of the areas, but that's a long-winded response to how did I get here, and why.
Yeah.
I just see this as a performance move. I'm a petrol head. I'm really into making things more efficient and faster, and I believe this is a good way, or a good component of the future recipe of performance.
Definitely. I mean, you can't ignore, and I wouldn't expect your story to be short either, because to get into the space, like you kind of hinted to or pointed right at, there's challenges to innovate. And that means that you have to have passion, you have to have the grit to get up and continue to try to innovate and evolve and improve. And you have to think that's either fun or have a mission and purpose, and something does lead you there. So I love getting that insight into your background.
One more component. You
Definitely
have to have money, funding.
I know.
So with AEM and with Hypercraft, going back in time a little bit, we were, some people say, "Oh, you're at the leading edge. You're at the leading edge." I'm like, we're not at the leading edge. We're at the bleeding edge. And now we're at the leading edge. So we're to the point where we do have some commercial opportunities in play, which are very exciting, because that's another component of the reward that we get to share, get to experience.
That's
well, let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk batteries.
Sure.
Can you shed some light on the innovation in battery technology that Hypercraft is bringing to the table, and from cell to a module and battery pack perspective?
Absolutely. So, Jerome, that's a really, we refer to the battery and the BMS package really as the Achilles heel to EVs, because one, the weight, two, the cost, and then three, which is probably both a plus and a minus, is how quickly this technology is spinning. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. There's a tremendous amount of CapEx being pushed into battery technology and evolution and development. So it's very, very, very exciting. What's also challenging is, what do you hitch your trailer to, right now? So you can start to ship product. If we were to wait another 6 months, there's going to be another technology. I have 15 different news feeds, and if I read every one of them every day, there's 15 new technologies being launched every day, as it seems. I know that's not accurate, but it seems. So the good thing is that, on the battery front, power density and cost are all headed in the right direction. So that's great. The challenge is, like I said, what do we hitch our wagon to? Right now, we're using 21700 cells. We have two iterations of those cells, a power and an energy. Power obviously is a higher C rating or discharge and charge rate. Energy is more conservative. Think of your street vehicle, your light conversion, or industrial applications where you don't have big peak demands. And then on the power side, obviously the motorsport, which we're heavily involved with some of the partners out there. some of the DoD opportunities work with, and some of the marine applications that we're supporting all require massive current dumps to get either moving or on plane, whatever it might be. So the cell isn't necessarily innovative at all. You know, you can buy them by the millions. What's more innovative is the packaging and the I would say I don't want to say control, but the management of the pack, I think, is what's unique, especially in the aftermarket. This tethers to some of the other systems. We say, hey, we're delivering OEM quality systems. In that word quality, there's a lot of things that happen. And one of them, if you were to talk to anyone within our company and say, what's the most important thing? Safety first, customer satisfaction second. Those are the two critical things. From a business component, obviously it's profitability. So we have investment opportunities back into the company that close that loop. But in this, between our packs, the Hyperpack, we have a innovative package. It's ruggedized, so it can live in a really harsh environment, as you may or may not have seen. But if you look at Sierra Car, or you look at our website, you see where these things are being used, and they're being punished. For years, this has been a development program for us to make them tougher and tougher. In addition to that, we have excellent thermal management programs that go depending on what the use case is. And then the battery management system, fusing internal contactors, and the connectors we use are all OEM graded, but they're also managed very well through our BMS solution and our contactor box. So when looking at this, I'm going to go backwards a little bit in time, Jerome, because I think it's really important to address these things. When we look at this market, yeah, it's growing, and it's growing really, really rapidly, which is awesome. There's also there's a rush to fill that vacuum that's being created by the demand. So how do we address that, and how do we make sure that we're doing right by the customer? Our vision is we look at what the OEMs are doing and look at what technologies on the forefront and how they're mitigating any of the negative impacts that can happen as a result of a thermal event or a crash or an HVIL event or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That when we were looking at the conversion market, 8-10 years ago, and then over the past 5 years, we've seen it evolve. But some of the safety devices that just weren't there, off-board chargers, charging based on voltage alone, not looking at the mapping of the cells and what the actual field looks like. Cell balancing was lacking in many cases. And IMD, I mean, to have an EV conversion with no IMD is just, I mean, that's crazy to me. And for those who are not familiar, that's a isolation monitoring devices. In simplest terms, it's a continuity checker between high voltage and low voltage, high voltage and chassis, to making sure there's no voltage leaks. So these are the things that, they're innovative. The fact that they're packaged, Jerome, and you when you buy these programs or these packages from us, it's all part of it. So you can't bypass any of these safety steps that we believe are critical in process long term. Kind of another long response.
Well, we probably need to mention is Hypercraft as a modular system, which is kind of a game changer in the industry because you have several units that you can couple or daisy chain or set up the way you want to use the best volume, to use the volume at the best you could in a conversion in a car or other application. So that's really something I wanted to mention.
Yeah, so in the Hyperpacks themselves, we have 3 iterations. We have a compact, the original Hyperpack, and then we have a Max Pack. And they're 8, 10, and 25 kilowatt hours per pack. But as you mentioned, which is really critical, those capacities aren't very exciting. We want 60, 80, 100 kilowatt hours. Mm-hmm. But then you have to level that off with a voltage setting. Where do you want to be? 400, 600, 800. So internally within a Hyperpack, we have different string and parallels for the cells, and that dictates the actual pack voltage. And then we run the packs in series to get to your stack voltage. So that's how that works. So that's somewhat innovative as well. And some of the cool features there, again, us being really kind of hyper focused in the motorsport and the DoD where there's severe use cases, you could take out a pack as a result of something catastrophic happening to the vehicle. Well, rather than have to change out the entire pack, of a normal car, think of a Tesla, one whole pack. In our case, if you have 8 packs to get you to 80 kilowatt hours, and if you have one that's impacted or something happened to it, you can swap out that one. The only thing you have to do is bring the voltage as close to possible, and then you drop that one pack in, connect everything back up, and you're up and running. So it's a more efficient way to service in the field as well.
So you've mentioned marine application and the DoD. Could you tell us maybe more about what you offer outside of the classic car powering?
Yeah, this is so interesting because there's more and more topics about, we don't just have to electrify cars, but boats on the water. We've had a couple conversations on the podcast. So I'm curious what you're going to say about this too, Kirk.
Sure. So, obviously the classic car is exciting and it's sexy and it's a beautiful halo, as is motorsports, to prove ourselves. But outside of that, we have fleet, we have marine, and we have DoD. The DoD is really interesting because it's forced us to, an area that we were really excited about going into. It sort of forced our hand a little bit earlier, and what that is parallel. We're running parallel hybrids, we're running series hybrids, and we also have an inline that's in development as well. But the parallel hybrid is very interesting. Because you can think of DoD and special ops vehicles where most vehicles are running on a white fuel, a diesel fuel of some iteration. So all vessels and vehicles can be running on the same fuel. The challenge with these, they produce a fairly loud sound, a diesel, even a contemporary diesel with common rail. It's still fairly loud and a fairly substantial heat signature. With the parallel system, you are now enabled to go into what we refer to as whisper mode. So as you approach a destination where you want to be silent and reduce your heat signature, you can shut down the diesels, change over to electric 100% and be a silent vehicle. And the only thing you're going to have is if there's tire noise or suspension noise, and it's going to reduce the heat signature dramatically. Because these are lower, they are, in these cases, they're, sub, 50 mile an hour vehicles. So you're not really generating a tremendous amount of energy to push them. But it allows them to go in, do their task, come out, or pass through wherever they're trying to pass through with as least visibility as possible, and then bring the diesels back up. And because you're in parallel, you're now in a position to, as you're driving under diesel power, you can actually regen via the motor that's still connected via the parallel system and repack the packs. So it's that's
very interesting.
It is. It's really cool, and it's really cool to see it in play. And then on the marine side, I'm giving you a high level. I can't go into a whole lot of depth on some of that, but on the marine side, we have several iterations there as well. And there's a pleasure cruising. There's several. I'm going to just break it into categories. So you have yachts, and here's an example. If you follow Formula One and you look at Monaco and you see all those big super yachts back then, every one of those is sitting there with some shore power, but they're already also running diesel gensets to power the vessel. Well, if you downsize the vessel slightly, not a mega yacht or super yacht, you can actually have your gensets shut down if you have battery packs to run off of, and use gensets to pack them up on occasion. But the fact is, you can be in a harbor under very light load, again, a parallel system using an EV propulsion system, and then batteries, battery packs with inverters to keep your house power or your vessel power up. So there's ways to make the cruise environment much more enjoyable. And then with pleasure cruisers, or like the deck boat industry, or even research vessels, which have two different profiles. Research vessels tend to have lower speed requirements, sub 30 horsepower, as an example. And it could be a pontoon boat or something as simple as that, a platform boat. But you can have a solar panel canopy, you can have a really nice set of battery packs, and then a lower power EV powertrain that allows you just to push through wherever you need to push through. And it's whisper quiet, it's dead silent. Then there's some other military applications that we're using that are using jet propulsions that are silent jets, underwater jet, propulsion that actually allow the vessels to move in a silent whisper mode. So these are these are some of the applications, just outside of the resto mod or the classic car conversion markets.
So zooming out a little bit, how big is the market for low volume battery application then? Because it seems limitless. And more importantly, how do you unlock the market?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Jerome, great question. Thank you. So I'm going to start with the aftermarket as an example. So one of the areas that I'm always focused on is what is the TAMS, the total addressable market, within a segment, and then is it expanding or contracting? So I'm going to start with the crate motor market segment. And there's some reports that are out there that'll show you what the crate motor market segment looks like. And this is stuff where you buy crate motors from like Summit, Jegs, or Blue Point. There's all these different, remanufacturers, and there's performance engine packages that are swapped into vehicles. And some are just straight up engine swaps, for like a fleet, the engine's expired, they just want to swap out a small block Chevy or whatever. And then there's a very large segment where people are using these engines as swaps, to take out a smaller engine, put in a contemporary LS3 as an example, that's super high efficiency V8. That market segment in 2022 was $23 billion. It's set to run a compounded annual growth rate of 5.5%. So by the late 2020s, coming into 2030, they're scheduling this to be about a $32 billion market segment. So that's one section of the repowering of ICE engines. And if we take a sliver of that, just 1/10 of 1%, you're talking about $700 million annually on repower opportunities. And they're going to go in all different places. But that's kind of where what we're doing is we understand this. We see these market opportunities to say, okay, we want to be a mid-market supplier to boutique OEMs. That's one area we really love to focus on, and that's great. But equally important is if we have packages that have a power range, and then Jerome, as you mentioned, thank you, that we have different capacities that can support that, and then different energy or power cells to meet the demand, the use case. When you look at the landscape of the crate motor swaps or engine swap opportunities, or the repowering of even kit cars or anything like that, it gets really exciting really fast, because we can stack on. If you look at our catalog and the finished good packages that we have, there's no accident of the power ranges that we have and the torque ranges that we have, because those overlap with what we're seeing in the crate engine industry as one example.
So this does make me kind of wonder, and you were kind of answering this, but with the huge potential here, how are you clearly differentiating yourself or clearly placing yourself within the broader EV industry? Because it's kind of like, oh, well, you could convert anything. You could work for the DoD. It could be, a biologist's boat. How do you find your strong foothold so that you can also be like, clearly, this is what we offer?
Great question, Francie. As mentioned earlier, we recognize the shortcomings of a basic or a DIY conversion. Those systems work, and they make a car go, and then you can stop it and you can recharge it. Is it being done in the most efficient manner? Unlikely. Are all the safety devices fully integrated so you have safety strategies built into the vehicle, into the powertrain? Highly unlikely. Is it completely packaged with all the connectors and harnessing and matched and engineered thermals? I would challenge that as well in most cases. So the way that we stand out is we engineer the complexity out and give you numbers that you can work with, and as close to I don't like the term plug and play, but as close to plug and play as possible, so that at the field level, at the installer level, they're doing things they're already really good at, which is the fabrication and the installation of these products. So that really is, if there's one, there's many, but if there's one, the fact that we are engineering a package that is fully integrated within itself That's the answer. Now, we also have, when I say thermals, everyone thinks ESS or energy storage or battery packs and motor inverter. We're talking about cockpit as well. So we've got these really, they look like a box, at the user level. And then there's just labels on the end: coolant in, coolant out, AC in, AC out, high voltage in, plus and minus, and then some low side stuff. So again, just simplifying an engineered package for it to be installed in the field. I think that gives us a huge, it gives the customer a much greater chance of success than handling them a box of contactors and fuses and switches and relays and things like that, versus everything that's been already programmed. And then in many cases, if there's an OEM level package, or there's a series production that's going to run, we'll come in and we'll do what's referred to as the final stage of integration and calibration. So we do the commissioning of the package the first several times, and then we do additional tuning in the field with whatever the user case might be. So again, maybe even being in the field with people differentiates us, from some of the other systems that are out there. Or when someone looks at this opportunity, they better understand this is challenging. We're making our own battery packs, and when if you're reading what's going on in the EV world, OEMs are still challenged with batteries, and they've got $1 bazillion, pumped into this, and we are taking lessons learned from them, applying it to everything we do, and we're in a constant evolution as well. So just yesterday they had 2 more breakthroughs on efficiencies for assembly. So that's and that has to do, Jerome, going back to the Hyperpacks. Another thing that's a little bit different, that between every cell, we have the chill plates or the thermal plates that sit below the collector plates. Within every cell, between every cell, is a flame retardant, thermally conductive foam. That's not easy to source, and it's certainly not easy to handle. But it's something that we've done to mitigate the thermal event. And we have had thermal events in catastrophic destruction, so where we've damaged or punctured packs, and there is a thermal event, but it's held to that one spot. It doesn't light off, like you see in so many other cases, because of these additional features that we've woven in.
So I recently got the chance to visit Hypercraft, and we have a dedicated episode on Afterspec Renew that's coming out very soon, where we see you guys testing the cells, the modules, and the packs. But going back to manufacturing and production, I'm sure you had many challenges especially producing in America for low volume application. Could you tell us what were the main challenges, and what are the challenges that are going to come as you scale?
Jerome, they're everywhere. They really are. When I look back at what we've accomplished over the past couple of years, and in particular that past 6 months, because it's accelerated because of the demand, and we have to deliver on programs, we're forced to be innovative and creative, and then have product that's going to go out and stay out. That being said, the challenges are the transition from, we have a semi-automation, you've seen the facility, so we have semi-automation with welding. When I say welding, that's laser welding the collector plates to the cells, so the cell taps themselves to the collector plate. That needs to be fully automated in order to expedite efficiency and maintain consistency with regards to QC. Some of our TAV, testing and validation, we need to further expand on loading the cells harder, because right now, and Francie, I don't know, this is kind of really cool stuff. When we load packs to discharge, when we're going through TAV, we'll load a pack up and we'll drain out, 10 kilowatt hours, at 350, 500 amps. That's a tremendous amount of energy, at higher voltages. We're pushing that back on the grid. That's where we're pushing it. So we're pumping the grid, with all this energy. Then we're repacking them to cycle these, really, really hard. So, to have a way, I would love. I don't know how to, but one of the things I would love to do as we go through our testing and validation, when we're doing our discharge cycles, it would be awesome to be able to recapture that and then close the loop and then pump that back into that pack. How we're going to do that, but it would be really, really.
The potential's there.
It's a fun exercise. Be cool though. but and then also skilled labor. We're doing all of our manufacturing in Utah right now. We're running, I believe there's 2 lines for battery assembly. We do have room to go to 6. When you were in the facility, we have those wide walkways because if you're not aware, we took over Sears. So the large walkways between departments is still open. We can fit 2 lines in that. We don't need big wide walkways, to be fancy. We can close that up. So we do have plenty of headroom to increase capacity. It's great. But I think that transitioning to closer to fully automation, to a higher level of automation would be a game changer for us.
No doubt.
When I was visiting Hypercraft, I walked next door and I visited the Sierra team, Sierra Cars. That's fantastic to see how their business model, and you're going to talk more about it, but their business model went from manufacturing cars with an internal combustion engine, and they completely shifted to full EV. So I'm pretty sure you had a key role in this conversion, but can you tell a bit more about Sierra and where they're going and where you are going with them?
Yeah, that's a great partner, and I would love to take credit for being the influencer within that. But going back to my story, like, hey man, I'm in search of this thing that can be more power, higher efficiency. Cole is the founder of Sierra Car. Jake Hawksworth is the one of the founders of Hypercraft. They got an introduction, through some common friends, or I don't know the exact detail, but they got an introduction. What do you do? What do you do? Chocolate and peanut butter, and next thing you have a Reese's, so Cole embraced the concept. He was having nightmarish issues with the engine programs that he was working with because he was trying to use small displacement motorcycle engines. But these motorcycle engines, remember, they're designed to push a 400-pound vehicle. Mm-hmm. Now you're putting them in a 1,400-pound vehicle. So the load characteristics increase dramatically. They have the power, kind of low on torque because they like RPM, but they're under much higher loads than they were normally accustomed to be, that they were designed for. So those reliability issues. So that was strenuous for Sierra Car with regard to reliability or perceived quality. Great package, great chassis and everything, but the powertrain was definitely an issue. So in conversations, we decided to give it a go. We looked at what the power was. We said, okay, let's we can double that, easily with an EV package and come in around the same weight, a little bit heavier because of the packs. We've got 18 kilowatt hours in there right now. So there's 3 compact packs in the performance package, and we have there's 2 iterations, a base and a race spec and an R spec, and the R spec has a peak of around a little over 300 horsepower. And the base has about 140 horsepower. Base does about 75 miles an hour. The R spec will go over 120, depending on tire and such. But this was the moment. We did the conversion, had a really basic torque cowl in there. Cole took it out, drove it, and came back, and he had tears running down his face because his goal was literally always in search of the next best thing. Cole is an incredible driver, a driver's coach. Has all sorts of records and accolades under his belt. For him to come back and say, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is where I wanted to go. We've got it. Now we just need to refine it. So that was a paradigm shift for Cole and Sierra Car. Now Sierra Car is all EV, across the board, and they're delivering vehicles, so now it's in production. Some of the really fun things and challenging things that we did early in the curve in the relationship was last year we ran Pikes Peak with Lucy Block and Blockhouse Racing with the Sierra Car and the R spec trim. So that's an IM225 with a step down and again 18 kilo. I think it was 18 kilowatt hours, and we learned a lot in that exercise, and we've applied all those lessons to the vehicles moving forward. More recently, you may or may not have heard that we struck a relationship with a Nitrocross, which is just a perfect match for EV. You have a cage fight with cars that lasts 4 or 5 laps. So it's absolutely phenomenal location. Their top class is called the FC1. That's 1,000 horsepower, all-wheel drive EV vehicle. The next rung down on the ladder is this year it's called the Evo. It's a turbocharged RX2. Used to be normally aspirated, now it's turbocharged. That's about 550 horsepower. Well, the next rung on the ladder is now the Sierra car, a 300-ish horsepower vehicle, and it's really because it's spec. You're going to see the best drivers come to the front, so the cream will rise to the top. So Nitrocross sees this as a driver development program, where you can see drivers come in, and if they're finishing up front, they are the best, because all the vehicles are going to be as close to identical. There'll be suspension, some shock tuning that people can do, and tire pressures and alignment, but it's minimal changes. And I'm really excited because Pastrana's mantra is always, we haven't found the best driver. How do we find them? They're out there. Who's it going to be? Well, we get to be a rung on that ladder. Like, how awesome is that? And to partner with Sierra Car and Nitrocross to be part of that equation is just, for me, it's an industry highlight, our career highlight, for me, for sure. And then for Hypercraft, it's, again, severe use. You have no room for excuses. Everyone's got everything on the line all the time. So you have no choice but to perform. So I think it's a great place to see, A, great racing, B, new talents, on the horizon, showing their faces here in the first place. And then C, we get to show what we're really made of, which is exciting. It's exciting across the board.
Very exciting. And it points to these partnerships and collaborations, which is not only, you're not the only case where a partnership or collaboration has led to breakthroughs and innovations that maybe you wouldn't have achieved at least as soon if it weren't for that partner. And it makes me start to think about, okay, well, these partnerships don't just come about, right? Someone comes to someone, something is sought out. Maybe there's happenstance here and there and coincidence, but what do you think is key to the kind of partnerships that will continue to push amazing electrification forward? What are those key things that we need to be looking for?
I think that's pretty simple. Delivering and continue over deliver. What you said, Francie, is you're so right. There has to be a degree of trust. People are rolling the dice. I'm incredibly fortunate with my work history and the successful partnerships I was able to work through over the years. And now I get to exercise and leverage those, and it's not to the point where I'm coming into a room saying, hey man, I've let you down, try it. I'm presenting, facts and data to really brilliant people, and they're understanding what these opportunities are. And then they know that, at least historically, the companies that I've worked with have been companies that have continued to deliver and outperform. And if there are challenges, we work through it. We burned the ships, is what I always say. We're on the beach. We have no choice. We got to go. So in this case, it's a reminiscent scenario. We have our company, and using Sierra as an example, we have this new relationship between Cole and I have crossed paths for 15 years, and never really thought twice about working with each other. But all of a sudden, there's this scenario where it connects. Now we can expand, those relationships. So when Cole says it's really awesome, this other vehicle, we've already had vehicle manufacturers from around the world that have vehicles that are reminiscent of Sierra Car call us and say, we need 10 kits. We need 20 kits. We want to convert our fleet for track day cars, because these are all the environments that these just align really well for. So in the end, it's going to be, take the but out of the equation, and I'll expand on that, and just continue to deliver. And if there is a problem, you work through it as quickly as possible. The but is where people come in and they drive the car and they get out and say, it's really cool, but it just doesn't do this or it doesn't do that. Now, the one big thing is the exhaust note. But for drivers to be able to hear the suspension, hear the car, and hear everything, it's a more meaningful and almost more submersive experience for drivers. And then to have everything happen in the stroke of a pedal. Remember, we don't have gears in these things. That brings a whole nother level. It brings a whole nother level of resolution, which is a weird word to use when we're talking about performance, because that driver's muscle memory has to be that much more precise, because they don't have 4 gears of a 3-inch swing, which is 12 total. So if you're thinking your first gear, you have the second gear, third gear, you have this throttle manipulation that you can use in almost any environment. Now you take all that and put it into one throttle sweep. Oh my God. So that brings the driver, there's an education process, but there's also a level of precision and muscle memory that's required that's unique from an ICE or multi-gear application. Got off track a little bit there.
No, I love it. There's so much to share.
Kirk, going back a little bit about partnerships, could you briefly introduce Stealth EV?
Yeah, so Stealth was a company that Hypercraft acquired for some technology. They had a Stealth motor. Unfortunately, that part was shortly lived because the components that we were using as the core were discontinued. They went EOL, so end of life. But Stealth itself is a well-recognized aftermarket, aftermarket DIY-facing division of Hypercraft. And what I like about Stealth a lot is that what we started, so one of the biggest challenges in EV is the cost barrier. Well, Stealth, has, a decade of incredible experience. Matt Halber is the founder. He's still with us. Incredibly technical person, very knowledgeable. And we get to tap into that knowledge base that he's got, here. We're bringing it to paper. We're bringing it to the customer. What we also are able to do is the upcycling of products. So, think of the Tesla, the Tesla drive units and the Tesla modules. Well, we've got packages that we've put together now that, again, we've engineered some of the complexity out of it for the installer. And because we're using recycled parts, the cost barriers drop dramatically. Mm-hmm. If you were to say, hey, I need a 600 horsepower package for, this all brand new parts and, at 100 kilowatt hours. Well, damn, you're looking at $80,000, $90,000, with thermals and everything. But it's a well-engineered package and it's bulletproof. You do it with a Tesla pack, with thermals, with batteries, with everything. Not that I'm saying this is cheap, but you're looking at the $45,000 to $50,000 range. It's half the price, and still a really badass package. I mean, the Tesla modules are awesome. They can crank out 1,200 amps, as far as current, 600 horsepower on a performance drive. There's LSDs available for these things, so it's a really inexpensive. It's a less expensive solution. It's not inexpensive. It's a less expensive solution, and Tesla. I'm sorry, and that's where Stealth really plays well. Stealth is also selling hyperpacks, mm-hmm. and battery pack systems, and then also Hypercraft, powertrains. So they offer those through those. Where there's no engineering support, Stealth is the like no integration and heavy engineering support. Stealth is a great solution for those.
But yeah, it's fantastic that you offer solution for individual and defense and marine and car application. It's fantastic to see how quickly the market has been growing, especially for the last 3 years. It's just been booming all over the world. And I'm so glad key players like Hypercraft are helping, promoting and developing and finding solution to convert classic cars and other applications.
Yeah,
thanks, thank you. And it's not easy, and we really appreciate anyone who's patting us on the back. We appreciate that. So thank you. I just want to make a comment on the EV conversion market. At the consumer DIY or smaller shop conversion. I mentioned earlier with some of the legislative and economic headwinds that we have, and I've said this many times over, and I'm going to use the example of drifting. I think is another great form of motorsport where EVs plug in just beautifully. Short bursts of high requirement, easy recharge, and nice time between rounds. So it's a great place for EVs to live. And then what really is exciting is that I'm going to tell you a story about Johnny and Sally who buy a car together. They buy a 240 and they're going to do an LS swap to go drifting because they're both into drifting. So this boyfriend, girlfriend, they buy this package. Well, they buy it to do the LS swap. That car then becomes a race vehicle, never to be driven on a public road again. So that was their go to school or go to work car. Now it's a race car. Now it's a race car. They have to get a trailer and a tow vehicle. And then their availability, the ability to use the car is limited to paid track days or events or practice days. So you now have taken something that's fun, and yeah, you're becoming a professional driver as the two of them. But what would happen if they did a Tesla swap and then they still wanted to drive it on the street? It's legal. So to me, that's a story. Again, I've said this so many times, and if it sounds somewhat rehearsed, it is, because the reality is, if you take that car, you do those ICE swap mods, your use is limited, and your cost accelerates. Forget about the cost of the conversion. I'm talking about the other things that go along with that: car, truck, trailer, garage. All these things you're going to need. Now, if you do that same vehicle, do a Tesla swap, integrate your Tesla pack, you're into it. Yes, $40,000 to $50,000, depending on what your thermals look like and your HVAC. But now you can take that car and drive it to school, drive it to work. And because it's EV, it's not a high-strung NA V8. It's not working. It's just cruising. So you're not straining the powertrain. You can just drive it to and from work. We have map switching in our PCUs that you can just run low power maps. And then you can go to an event. Yeah, you might want to stick it on a trailer because if you hurt something, or back it into a wall. But if you're, really conservative, just doing, skid pad stuff, throw some tires in the back, drive it to the event, have your fun, put your tires back in and drive home. So your usage of the vehicle, remains, as a street legal vehicle. To get a CARB exemption, when I was with AEM, we did a couple of Mustang conversions, and coincidentally, our controller at the time, his name is Tony, he did a K-motor swap on his Integra. It cost him, I think it took him over a year and over $6,000 of testing and validation to prove it was impacting the emissions of the vehicle on his Integra with the ICE swap. When we did we did a Tesla swap and an illuminator swap on the Mustangs, we drove to the ARB ref station. They inspected the vehicle. I think we paid $60, and we had an EO for the car. So just everything is so much more pain-free if you can just bring your eyes up just a little bit to see what the long-term costs are, and then usages, and then keeping it legal. Gets exciting.
It does, and I think you've touched on a lot of points like throughout our conversation, from improving efficiency, improving performance, innovating in general, like widespread appliances of electrifying things, as well as affordability. So if we take another a step out, big picture, I want to ask both of you, really, especially with your experience in either retrofitting or building forward more electric, where are y'all seeing the EV industry going in the next 5 years, including regulation? We touched on that too. It's so dynamic, it's so changing, because what we want to see in 5 years, I don't know if it's going to be what we want to see, but what are y'all thinking? What's the future of this industry?
Jerome, you want to go first?
Yeah, what I want to bring to the table is seeing firsthand the way things are moving in Europe, in the UK, where OEMs are actually embracing retrofitting. There should be an announcement fairly soon where key OEMs are going to deliver conversion for not only vans, but also cars. So that's really something that's going to bring attention to the concept of retrofitting for the general public. So that should change quite the dynamic of the whole industry. Same thing in the UK. It's already fairly easy to convert the car and make it road legal. And other countries, Australia, South America, are also places embracing the concept of converting for different reasons. It might be just the economic point of view. It might be the green aspect converting a car or a van brings. And more cities around the world are now limiting access to the center of those cities, and converting classic cars, but also delivery truck completely changes the game. So I only see the principle of converting existing vehicle grow exponentially for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, Jerome. The areas that I hope to see are massive improvements in power density. So the range and charge and discharge concerns are alleviated. And with that, there's a cost down effort to where we can get the kilowatt hours down to a price point that aren't half the vehicle's cost. So those are the primary areas that I'm focused on. And then, strangely enough, I believe that for the performance aftermarket, the hybrid opportunity will continue to grow dramatically, which I'm excited about as well. We've got our foot in the door with that, and we're seeing some incredible results. And which, when I say incredible, that's power performance, which means fun, in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your time and energy today, Kirk, and for Jerome to getting us all linked up, because I do think this is a really interesting topic of conversation. Like I said, we typically are focusing on passenger vehicles. How am I getting from point A to point B? How are we getting electric cars on the road? But there's so much to work with here and so much fun to be had in the recreation space, but also purpose-driven projects as well, where we can bring electrification, hybrid, full battery electric into the scene and totally basically kind of change the world. So thank you again, Kirk, for coming onto the podcast and giving me your time and your energy in our audience as well today. I'd love for them to put their comments and questions that they might have about this topic into the comment section, fuel the discussion. But also, Kirk, if folks want to learn more about Hypercraft or reach out to your team, where should they go?
Our website, hypercraftusa.com. That's a great source. And then our socials are always fun. And then on the other side of that is stealthev.com. So Hypercraft USA or Stealth EV.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Jerome. I hope you're doing well over there across the pond. And we're going to be seeing you soon in America, I hope, right? So y'all are also
a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Good. And
yeah, make sure you tune to Spec Renew to check the videos we've done at Sierra and at Hypercraft, and many more interesting videos coming up.
Yes, I can't wait to see that episode. It'll be great. Let me know when it drops, and I'll make sure to let everyone know on the podcast too. Thank you both again for coming onto the podcast. And like I said, audience, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you next time on the next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.